quietest heartbreak is waking up one day and realizing your old life no longer feels like home. Not because it was wrong, not because it wasn't beautiful, but because something inside you has quietly changed. No one really prepares us for this kind of grief. We hear people talk about healing, transformation, growth, becoming, but almost no one speaks about what those things ask us to leave behind. Because every transformation carries an ending within it. Every version of you that has ever existed was built to help you survive a particular season in your life. Some versions carried you through loneliness. Some taught you how to belong. Some learned to stay quiet because speaking felt unsafe. Some worked tirelessly to earn love. Some became smaller so that everyone else could remain comfortable. There were never mistakes. There were protectors, and perhaps the greatest act of love isn't holding on to these versions forever. Perhaps it's thanking them before gently allowing them to rest. I think one of the greatest misunderstandings about growth is believing it should always feel exciting, as though becoming the person you've always dreamt of should feel effortless, joyful, certain. But what if real transformation feels difficult? What if it feels like standing in a room you've loved for years and suddenly realizing you've already left in your heart? Nothing around you has changed. The walls are still the same. The conversations are the same. The people are the same. Your routine is the same. Yet somehow, everything feels unfamiliar because your inner world has shifted. And once your inner world changes, your outer world can never quite feel the same again. This is where grief quietly begins. Not because you've lost yourself, but because you've discovered someone you've never allowed yourself to become. I don't think we grieve change because it's always painful. I think we grieve because every new version of ourselves asks an old version to step aside, and that can feel like saying goodbye to someone you genuinely loved. The younger you, the stronger you, the version that survived, the version that hoped, the version that believed staying was safer than leaving. They deserve more than criticism. They deserve gratitude, because without them, you would never have made it here. Have you ever wondered why we stay? Why we remain inside relationships we've already outgrown? Why we keep returning to places that no longer nourish us? Why we continue introducing ourselves as people we've quietly stopped being? I don't think it's because we're weak. I don't think it's because we're afraid of change. I think it's because at some point, staying protected us. The version of you who learned to keep everyone happy was trying to make sure you wouldn't be abandoned. The version of you who never stopped achieving was trying to prove you were worthy of love. The version of you who controlled every outcome was trying to make life feel safe. The version of you who delayed your dreams was trying to protect you from disappointment. None of these parts of you appeared by accident. They were intelligent, creative, resourceful. They learned how to survive the world as they understood it. And perhaps that's why healing can feel so confusing, because you're not simply releasing a habit, you're releasing a protector. You're asking a part of yourself that has worked tirelessly for years to finally put down its armor. Of course that feels uncomfortable. Of course that feels difficult. Of course part of you wants to go back. Not because the past is better, but because it's familiar. The human heart often mistakes familiarity for safety, even when familiarity is quietly keeping us small. And that's one of the hardest truths we'll ever face. Sometimes the life we've outgrown still feels comfortable. Sometimes the identity we've outgrown still receives applause. Sometimes the relationships we've outgrown still offer belonging, but belonging loses its beauty. When it requires you to leave yourself behind, there comes a moment in every life when your soul begins whispering, "This is no longer fitting." Not because you've become better than anyone else, not because you've forgotten where you come from, but because you've honored the lessons, and the lessons have now become the limit. I think we spend so much time in our lives believing that loyalty means never changing. But what if true loyalty isn't remaining the same? What if true loyalty is becoming the person your life is asking you to become? There is a quiet guilt that often accompanies growth. You begin wondering, am I leaving people behind? Am I changing too much? Should I be grateful for what I have already? And gratitude is beautiful, but gratitude doesn't ask you to remain where you've stopped growing. You can honor the bridge without living on it forever. You can thank the season without refusing the next one. You can love who you were without asking them to become who you are today. Growth isn't betrayal. Growth is gratitude expressed through evolution. Perhaps the grief you're feeling isn't the sign that you're making the wrong decision. Perhaps it's simply evidence that something meaningful is coming to an end, and endings deserve to be honored. Not rushed, not denied, honored. Because every chapter you release creates space for another chapter to begin. I stop apologizing for becoming. I stop measuring my life against versions of myself that were only meant to carry me through another season. I stop asking yesterday for permission to live tomorrow. I no longer mistake familiarity for belonging. I no longer confuse survival with living. I no longer believe that shrinking is kindness. I no longer believe that carrying everyone else's expectations is love. I no longer believe that staying the same is loyalty, because loyalty is my past. Because loyalty to my past should never become betrayal of my future. I honor every version of myself, the frightened one, the hopeful one, the exhausted one, the people pleaser, the perfectionist, the one who needed certainty before taking a step, the one who confused control with safety, the one who stayed because leaving felt impossible. I honor them all, because every one carried a place, because each one carried a piece of me across a bridge I could not have crossed alone. But bridges are meant to be crossed, not lived upon. Today, I choose to put my feet on new ground. I choose to trust the life that is quietly unfolding before me. I choose to release the guilt of changing. I choose to welcome the discomfort of growth. I choose authenticity over approval, truth over performance, presence over perfection, peace over control, movement over fear. I am no longer becoming the person I think the world will accept. I am becoming the person my soul has been patiently waiting for. There will be people who only know the old version of me. I bless them. There will be places that only recognize who I used to be. I bless them. There will be dreams that no longer belong to this chapter of my life. I bless them, because blessing what has ended allows me to fully receive what is beginning. Sometimes growth sounds like goodbye, but goodbye is not the opposite of love. Sometimes goodbye is love. Love for who you were, love for who you are, and love for the person you are still becoming. If this chapter has found you, perhaps it isn't asking you to change overnight. Perhaps it is simply asking you to notice the places where your soul has quietly whispered, "This no longer fits." To notice the dreams that have become too small, the identities that have become too heavy, the expectations that no longer belong to you. You don't have to rush. You don't have to force yourself to let go before you're ready. Growth has its own rhythm. Healing has its own timing. Trust that. And when the time comes, release with gratitude. Release with gratitude rather than guilt. Carry the wisdom. Leave the weight. Honor every chapter, but don't be afraid to turn the page. Because sometimes the greatest act of self-love is giving yourself permission to become someone your past could never have imagined. Sometimes growth sounds like goodbye, but every goodbye creates space for a truer hello, a hello to peace, a hello to freedom, a hello to the life that finally fits.